My name is Olivia Sterling. I'm 28 years old. 13 years ago, on a stormy October night, my father looked straight into my eyes and told me to leave. He said he didn't need a sick daughter like me. I was only 15, drenched in rain with nowhere to go. The reason? My younger sister told a lie, a calculated, deliberate lie, and my parents believed it without hesitation. Just like that, I was erased. 3 hours later, the police called them to the hospital. I had been hit by a car. When my father walked into that hospital room and saw who was sitting beside my bed, his hands began to tremble uncontrollably. You can't be here. How did you? The woman sitting there was Dr. Ella Smith, one of the most respected professors in the state. She had found me on the roadside and saved my life. That night changed everything. Last month, I stood on stage at my sister's graduation ceremony as the keynote speaker. My parents had no idea I would be there. Before I tell you what happened when they saw me, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. I'd also love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there, so feel free to leave a comment below. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I learned early on that, in our house, Madison's tears carried more weight than my achievements. When I was 11, I won first place at the regional science fair. My project on water filtration systems beat 40 other students. I was thrilled. Clutching the blue ribbon, I ran home, burst through the door, and found my mom in the kitchen. I won, I shouted. She smiled and hugged me. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Then Madison walked in from dance practice, 8 years old, face flushed, tears streaming. I messed up my pirouette. Everyone laughed at me. Instantly, Mom let go of me and rushed to her. She knelt down and held Madison close. Oh, baby, it's okay. You'll do better next time. I stood there, still holding my ribbon. No one even asked to see it. That was the pattern. Madison needed more attention. Madison was sensitive. Madison required careful handling. I learned to celebrate quietly, to need less, to take up less space. By the time I turned 14, I had stopped showing them my report cards. Straight A's couldn't compete with Madison's B- drama. When I was accepted into a prestigious summer science camp, I was overjoyed. It was a full scholarship, 2 weeks studying environmental science alongside real researchers. Dad barely glanced up from his phone. That's nice, Olivia. Then Madison burst into tears. Why does she get to go away? That's not fair. Mom placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and turned to me. Olivia, maybe you should skip it this year. Your sister needs. I need you here, Madison finished. I didn't go. They said it was about family unity, about being understanding, about being the bigger person. So I learned to shrink myself, to be quiet, undemanding, invisible. But the breaking point was coming. I just didn't know it would arrive with a storm. The lies started small. Madison, now 12, would take my things without asking. Whenever I mentioned it, gently, always gently, she would deny everything. I never touched your sweater, she'd insist, even when it was clearly lying on her bed. Mom would sigh and say, Olivia, don't start fights. Then money went missing from Mom's wallet, $50. Madison claimed she had seen me near Mom's purse that morning. I hadn't. I had left early for school. Dad called me into his study. Did you take money from your mother? No, I didn't. Madison says you did. She's lying. His expression hardened. Don't accuse your sister. But I didn't. Enough. His voice cut sharply through mine. I'm disappointed in you, Olivia. I thought you were better than this. I lost my phone for a month, and the science camp opportunity one had been promised for the following summer was taken away. We can't trust you with independence right now, Mom said. Madison stood on the stairs, watching. When our parents weren't looking, she smiled. That stolen $50 was only a test. Madison was learning she could get away with anything. The pattern escalated. A broken vase, my fault. A failed test Madison didn't study for. I should have helped her more. A rumor at school about Madison cheating on a quiz. I must have started it. Eventually, I stopped defending myself. What was the point? They believed her tears over my truth every single time. By 15, I felt like a ghost in my own home, present, yet invisible unless they needed someone to blame. I spent more time at the library, at school, anywhere but home. I told myself I just needed to survive until college. 2 more years. I could last 2 more years. I was wrong. October, junior year. That week felt unusually heavy. There was a boy at school named Jake. He was in my AP chemistry class, a nice guy but terrible at balancing equations. He had asked me for help a few times, and I stayed after class to explain stoichiometry. That was all just homework help. Madison, however, had a massive, almost obsessive crush on him. She would walk past my classroom just to catch a glimpse of him. In her diary, she had even practiced writing, Madison's Sterling Walker. I saw it once when I went to return a pen I had borrowed from her. On Tuesday, Jake stopped me at my locker. "Hey, thanks for the help yesterday. You really saved me." I smiled. "No problem." He hesitated for a moment, then added, "Maybe we could study together sometime for the midterm?" "Sure. The library works."
Cool.
He walked away. I turned, and there was Madison, standing about 20 feet down the hall, staring at me, her face completely pale. That evening at dinner, she hardly said a word, only moving her food around the plate without eating. Mom kept asking if she was all right. Madison would just shrug and stay silent. I should have realized that her silence was far more dangerous than her tears. On Thursday, there was a visiting lecturer in my biology class, Dr. Eleanor Smith, from the State University. She spoke about educational equity research. I stayed behind afterward to ask her a few questions, and she seemed impressed. "You have a curious mind," she said as she handed me her card. "Don't let anyone dim that light." I smiled and thanked her, not knowing at the time that she would end up saving my life. A week later, that Friday, the storm warnings began. A big one was coming, and everyone was getting ready, stocking up supplies and securing their homes. Madison still wasn't speaking to me. She wouldn't even look in my direction. I remember thinking, at least I'll have the weekend to catch up on homework in peace. I had no idea what she was planning. Friday night, the rain started around 6 o'clock. We had dinner in near silence while the weather alerts kept buzzing on Dad's phone. Wind advisories, flood warnings. Everyone felt tense. Madison picked at her pasta, and I could sense her watching me. Whenever I looked up, she quickly turned away. After dinner, I went to my room and started my English homework. Outside, the wind grew stronger, and the rain pounded against the windows, the kind of storm that makes you grateful to be indoors. Around 8, I heard loud, heavy sobbing coming from downstairs. It was Madison. I froze, set my pen down, and listened. Mom's voice was soft and soothing. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?
Talk to me."
The crying continued. I waited, thinking maybe she had twisted her ankle, failed another test, or something else had happened. Then Dad's voice cut through, sharp and angry. "Get down here now." My stomach dropped. I walked downstairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. Madison was sitting on the couch with her face buried in Mom's shoulder while Mom stroked her hair. Dad stood by the fireplace with his arms crossed, his face red with anger. "What's going on?"
I asked.
Madison lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me, and for just a brief moment, less than a second, I saw something else behind those tears. Something cold. Then it disappeared. "Tell her what you told us," Dad said, his voice icy. Madison's lip trembled. "Why do you hate me so much?" "What?" I stepped closer. "I don't hate you." "Then why?" she sobbed. "Why have you been spreading rumors about me at school?" My mind went blank. What rumors? About me and Jake? About me cheating on that quiz? About me being a liar? The ground felt like it was shifting beneath me. "Madison never lies to her," Mom said quietly. "Just don't." I had no idea what she was talking about, but I was about to find out, and it would cost me everything. "I didn't spread any rumors," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't know what you're talking about." Madison pulled out her phone with trembling hands. "Then explain this." She showed Mom a screenshot, some group chat with messages supposedly sent by me. They were cruel, vicious things about Madison, things I would never say. But my name and my profile picture were right there. I didn't write those, I said quickly. Someone is using my account. Stop, Dad snapped, his voice cracking like thunder. Just stop lying. I'm not lying. And Jake, Madison whispered. You knew I liked him, but you've been flirting with him, trying to make me look stupid. He asked me for help with chemistry. That's all, just that. Madison's voice rose. You've been staying after class with him, meeting him at the library. He told his friend, he thinks you're pretty. We're study partners. You tried to steal him from me. Madison stood up. And last week, you pushed me on the stairs.
Look.
She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a dark purple bruise on her forearm. I stared at it in shock. I never touched you. You did, Mom.
She did.
I didn't want to say anything because I thought maybe she was just stressed. Mom stood up and moved between us. Olivia, this is serious. If you hurt your sister. I didn't. Then how did she get that bruise? Dad demanded. I don't know, maybe she did it herself. The words hung heavily in the air. Madison's eyes widened, fresh tears spilling over. You think I would hurt myself just to frame you? Yes. I shouted, desperate now. Yes, because you do this, you lie. You've been lying about me for years. Dad stepped toward me. Is this true, Olivia? Have you been bullying your sister, making her life miserable? No, God, no. Please just listen. I've heard enough. Enough. Dad's fist slammed against the mantel. I've heard enough of your excuses. They're not excuses. Please just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. Mom spoke softly, her tone heavy with disappointment. I thought we raised you better than this. At 12 minutes, 14 seconds, Madison buried her face in her hands, sobbing. The perfect image of a victim. I stared at her, truly stared, and for a brief second, she met my gaze. The tears were gone. Her eyes were dry, sharp, calculating. You're lying, I whispered at 12:22. I'm not, she replied at 12:31, her voice steady. You are. You made all of this up, Olivia. Mom. She's lying, I insisted, turning toward Dad at 12:46. Please, you have to believe me. I would never hurt her. I would never spread rumors. She's doing this because she's jealous, because Jake doesn't like her. That's enough. Dad's voice turned cold and flat at 12:55. I don't want to hear another word from you. You're sick. Something is wrong with you. The word struck like a slap.
Sick.
I'm not. You need help, he continued at 13:12. Professional help. But right now, he pointed toward the door. Right now, I need you out of my sight. Outside, the rain pounded as thunder rattled the windows. Dad, it's storming. I don't care. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem. His face twisted. Get out. I don't need a sick daughter like you in this house. Those words cut deep, sick daughter. As if I were something diseased, broken, wrong. I looked at Mom, silently pleading.
Say something.
Stop him. Tell him this is insane. She turned away, keeping her arm wrapped around Madison. At 13:50, I pulled my jacket from the hook, my hands trembling so badly, I could barely zip it. The door slammed shut behind me. Through the window, I saw Madison watching as I left. She wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling. The rain hit me like a wall, cold and furious. Within seconds, I was drenched. I lingered on the porch, waiting. Maybe Dad would come after me, apologize, say he had overreacted. The door never opened. So I walked. Nowhere to go, just away. Away from that house, away from Madison's lies, away from parents who believed I was sick. At 14:36, my phone buzzed. Low battery, 8%. I tried calling my friend Sarah, no answer. Jessica, straight to voicemail. It was Friday night. Everyone was home with their families, safe, dry. Not me. The wind lashed my hair across my face as rain fell in sheets. I could barely see 10 feet ahead. Cars sped past, spraying water from puddles. No one stopped. I headed toward the library. Maybe I could wait out the storm there. At 15:09, I found it closed, dark windows, locked doors. The bus station was 2 miles away. If I could reach it, I could sit inside, warm up, figure out what to do. So I kept walking. Every step felt heavier than the last. My shoes were soaked, water squelching with each step. My jacket clung to my skin. I was freezing, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. Thunder cracked overhead. Lightning split the sky. For a moment, I thought about turning back, knocking on the door, begging to come home. But the look on Dad's face, the disgust, I couldn't erase it. Sick daughter. Maybe he was right. Maybe something really was wrong with me. Why else would my own family choose Madison over me every single time? At 16:03, the bus station was still a mile away. The rain grew heavier, the wind stronger. I didn't notice the headlights until it was almost too late. I was crossing an intersection. The light was green. I was sure of it, but the rain was blinding, the wind howling, and I couldn't see clearly. The car came out of nowhere. Blinding headlights. A horn screaming. Brakes screeching. I tried to jump back. I wasn't fast enough. At 16:26, the impact threw me sideways. My body slammed onto the hood, then crashed onto the pavement. My head struck the asphalt hard. Pain exploded through my skull. White-hot, overwhelming. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Rain poured into my mouth, my eyes. Everything felt tilted, wrong. At 16:53, I heard a car door slam. Footsteps rushed toward me, splashing through water. Oh my God! Oh my God! A woman's voice cried in panic. Sweetheart, can you hear me? I tried to respond. Nothing came out. Don't move, just stay still. I'm calling 911. Her hands rested on my shoulder, gentle but urgent. Stay with me, okay? What's your name? I blinked, struggling to focus. Her face hovered above me, blurred, dark hair plastered to her skin, rain streaming down her cheeks. There was something familiar about her. Had I seen her before? My parents. I managed, my voice barely more than a breath. Your parents? Okay, what's their number? I'll call them. They don't. I coughed, tasting blood. They don't want me. Her expression shifted instantly. What? They threw me out. The words felt unbearably heavy. Said I'm sick, don't want me anymore. She stared at me as the rain poured between us. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, maybe even horror. You're going to be okay, she said, though her voice trembled. I promise you're going to be okay. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Her face was the last thing I saw before everything faded to black. I don't remember the ambulance. I don't remember arriving at the hospital. The first thing I became aware of was sound, the steady beeping of machines, the hum of fluorescent lights, the sharp scent of antiseptic, and a voice. The woman from the accident. She has a severe concussion, possible internal bleeding. We need to keep her under observation. I tried to open my eyes, but they felt impossibly heavy. Pain pulsed through my entire body. I'm staying, the same voice said, firmer now, no longer panicked. I'm not leaving her alone. Ma'am, are you family? I'm the one who hit her with my car. I'll stay until her parents arrive. Time blurred. I drifted in and out of consciousness. Voices came and went. Then, at some point, new voices, familiar ones. We're Olivia Sterling's parents, my father said, his tone strained. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling. The woman spoke again, but now her voice was cold, professional. I'm Dr. Eleanor Smith. A pause followed, then recognition. You're a professor at the State University, my mother said. Dean of Graduate Studies. Correct, she replied, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. And I'm also the one who hit your daughter tonight. It was an accident. We don't blame you, my father said quickly. She ran into the road in the middle of a storm. She was soaking wet, alone. She's 15 years old. Dr. Smith's voice rose. Why was she out there? Silence. Mr. Sterling, I asked you a question. There was a family situation. A discipline issue. A discipline issue, Dr. Smith repeated slowly. What kind of discipline involves putting a child out in a storm? We didn't. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because your daughter told me something before she lost consciousness. She said her parents didn't want her anymore. She said you told her she was sick. Silence again. You're lying. Madison's voice, small, frightened. Olivia's making that up. She was barely conscious. She wasn't making anything up. I heard footsteps, someone moving away from my bed. I need to speak with a social worker, Dr. Smith said. That won't be necessary, my father replied, trying and failing to sound authoritative. We're her parents. We'll handle this. With all due respect, sir, she said, you've handled it enough. This is a private family matter. The moment you sent a minor out into storm, it stopped being private. Footsteps approached again. I felt her hand wrap around mine. Warm, steady, protective. I'm not leaving until I know she's safe. A new voice entered the room. A police officer. Mr. Sterling, we need to ask you a few questions. We haven't done anything wrong, my mother said, though her voice shook. Your daughter was hit by a car at 11 p.m. during a major storm. She's 15 years old. We need to understand why she wasn't home. I forced my eyes open slightly. Everything was blurred, shapes shifting, shadows moving. I made out my father's silhouette, Madison standing behind him. She's waking up, Dr. Smith said. Everyone out now. She's our daughter. My father began. And I'm the doctor in this room.
Out.
Footsteps retreated. Voices faded. The door shut. Dr. Smith leaned closer, her hand gently squeezing mine. You're safe now, she whispered. I promise you're safe. I wanted to believe her, but safe felt like a foreign word. I hadn't known what that felt like in years. I closed my eyes again and let the darkness take me. When I woke up 3 days later, my parents were gone. Dr. Smith was still there. She had kept her promise. She hadn't left me alone. The concussion was serious. I spent 4 days in the hospital. Every day, Dr. Smith came by, bringing books, sitting beside me, talking about college, science, and futures I had never even imagined. My parents visited once. They brought a bag of clothes and some schoolwork. They stood awkwardly at the foot of my bed, like strangers. We're glad you're okay, my mother said. My father nodded. You gave us quite a scare. Neither of them apologized. Neither explained. Neither asked if I wanted to come home. Madison didn't come at all. On the 5th day, a social worker arrived. Her name was Rita. She had kind eyes and asked gentle questions about my home, my family, and what had happened that night. I told her everything. Madison's lies, my parents choosing her, the words, sick daughter. She listened carefully, taking notes. Olivia, she said softly, you have options. You don't have to go back. Where else would I go? A knock sounded at the door. Dr. Smith stepped inside. She can stay with me. I stared at her. What? It would be a temporary foster placement, she explained, glancing at Rita. Until we figure out something more permanent, if that's what she wants. I've already started the paperwork. Why would you do that? My voice cracked. You don't even know me. Dr. Smith sat down on the edge of my bed. Because someone once did the same for me, she said quietly. When I was 17, my family threw me out too. A teacher took me in, and it changed my life. She reached out and gently held my hand. You've always been exceptional, Olivia. You carry a kind of promise most children never even imagine. Don't allow anyone to label you as weak or broken, and don't let anyone dull your light. Hearing that, I broke down in tears. I simply couldn't hold them back. I'll understand if you'd rather go home, Dr. Smith said gently. But if you're ready for something different, I'm here for you. Right there in that hospital room, I made my choice. I chose a different path. 6 months later, I hardly recognized myself. I still had the same name, but I was living an entirely new life. Dr. Smith's home was peaceful and orderly, filled with books, greenery, and the soft hum of classical music. She offered me the guest room and told me I could make it my own in any way I liked. I transferred schools and started over. No one knew about Madison, my parents, or the label of being the sick daughter. I was simply Olivia, driven, intelligent, and finally able to breathe. Dr. Smith, Eleanor, as she insisted I call her, introduced me to a world I had never known. I attended university lectures, research symposiums, and dinners where professors debated policy, equity, and change. Education is freedom, she would often say. Knowledge is power. No one can ever take that from you. I poured myself into my studies. Straight A's were no longer just grades. They became evidence, proof that I wasn't sick, broken, or wrong. Eleanor guided me through grant writing, scholarships, and the systems designed to support kids like me, those from difficult backgrounds who needed a second chance. One evening, over a simple dinner of pasta and salad, she told me, "You're going to do something meaningful one day. I can see it." Occasionally, I thought about my old family. I wondered if Madison had ever confessed the truth, if my father regretted what he said, or if my mother had ever defended me. But most of the time, they barely crossed my mind. Through mutual friends, I heard that Madison was doing well, still the golden child, still the center of attention. My parents had removed every trace of me from their home, as if I had never existed. Good, I told myself. Let them erase me. I'm building something better. By my senior year, I had a clear vision: attend college, major in education policy, and create opportunities for kids who fall through the cracks, those abandoned or failed by their families. I was determined to turn my pain into purpose. College passed in a whirlwind of late nights, study sessions, and slowly learning to trust again. I earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university, supported by Eleanor's glowing recommendation letter. I majored in education policy and social justice, with a minor in psychology. I wanted to understand systems. Why some children received support while others disappeared into gaps wide enough to consume them. During summers, I interned with nonprofits, grant-writing organizations, and youth advocacy groups. I learned how funding flowed, how programs were built, and how compassion could be transformed into real action. I graduated summa cum laude. Eleanor cried at the ceremony. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Truly proud. I was hired almost immediately as a research coordinator in a university's education department. Eleanor's university, in fact. We worked in different buildings, maintaining professional boundaries, but we remained closely connected. At 25, I developed an idea: a scholarship program for students from unstable or harmful family environments, those who had been abandoned, abused, or neglected and needed another chance. I called it the Second Chances Scholarship. The name wasn't particularly creative, but it was honest. Eleanor helped me craft the grant proposals. We secured funding from 3 organizations and launched the program at one university as a pilot. Then it expanded to 2, then 5. By the time I turned 27, we had awarded more than $200,000 in scholarships, helping 47 students stay in school, and in many cases stay alive and hopeful. Soon, the media began to notice. Local newspapers and education journals featured our work. I gave interviews and spoke at conferences, always sharing my story, in general terms, a 15-year-old girl who had been told she didn't belong. I never revealed names. One day, my colleague David Brooks knocked on my office door. "Olivia, you're being considered as a keynote speaker for a graduation ceremony." "Which university?" I asked. "Riverside State University." My stomach tightened. I paused, steadying myself. "That's my sister's school." David looked surprised. "You have a sister?" "Not anymore," I replied quietly. "But yes, she's graduating this spring." He sat down across from me. "Do you want me to decline on your behalf?" I looked at my desk, at the neat stacks of scholarship applications. 47 students. 47 second chances. "What's the theme?" I asked. "Resilience and educational equity. President Walsh specifically requested you. He said your work represents everything the ceremony stands for." My work, born from rejection, from being cast aside, from being called sick. Would I have control over my speech? I asked. "Complete control. They just want you there." I imagined Madison in her cap and gown, smiling, likely talking about her perfect family and supportive parents. I pictured my parents in the audience, proud, unaware, still convinced they had made the right decision all those years ago. Then I imagined standing on that stage, telling my story, not for revenge, but for closure. I need to speak with Eleanor, I said. That evening over dinner, I told her everything. They have no idea who I've become, I said. They don't know what I've built. They probably think I'm gone or worse. Eleanor set her fork down and looked at me carefully. What do you want to happen? I want to close the chapter properly, not with anger but with truth. And if they're hurt now, it is only because they hurt me first. I met her eyes steadily. I am not doing this for revenge. I am doing this because my story matters. Because showing them who I became despite everything is not vindictive, it is honest. Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed my hand gently. Then do it on your terms, she said, with your head held high. Show them who you are now. I called David the next morning. Tell President Walsh I accept. I didn't see Madison in person, but I heard things and saw things. Social media makes ghosts visible. She posted constantly. Her senior year was documented in filtered photos and carefully curated captions. Brunches with friends, study sessions that looked more like photo shoots, the perfect college experience. Can't believe I'm graduating in 2 months, one caption read. So grateful for my parents who supported me every step of the way. Hashtag blessed, hashtag family first. The comments poured in. You're amazing. So proud of you. Your parents raised you right. I scrolled through her profile only once, morbid curiosity. There were no photos of me, no mentions of a sister in her digital world. I had never existed. One post caught my attention. Madison at dinner with our parents. Big smiles, wine glasses raised. Celebrating my graduation with the 2 best people in the world. Love you, Mom and Dad. Dad looked older now, gray at the temples. Mom looked tired, but they looked happy, proud. I closed the app. Through old acquaintances, people I had known before everything changed, I heard Madison was excited about graduation. A big ceremony. All her friends would be there. Her parents were throwing a party afterward. The keynote speaker is supposed to be really good. One friend posted in a group chat I was still accidentally part of. I had started a scholarship program years ago. I was still tied to that circle. Should be inspiring, someone added. Madison replied, Ugh, those speeches are always so boring, but whatever. It's my day. I smiled and took a screenshot. Saved it. Not for revenge, just proof she had no idea what was coming. I wondered if she would recognize me. 13 years is a long time. I had changed, grown, become someone else entirely. We would find out soon enough. I wrote my speech over 2 weeks, drafted, revised, cut, added, reading it aloud to Eleanor more times than I could count. Don't mention names, she advised. Tell the story. Let people connect the dots themselves. The speech opened with statistics, educational inequity, students falling through systemic cracks. Then it shifted personal. At 15, I was told I didn't belong, that something was wrong with me, that I was too broken to keep. I practiced in front of the mirror, watching my expression stay calm, composed, professional. But someone saw potential instead of problems. Someone gave me a second chance. And that changed everything. No tears. No anger. Just facts. Just truth. David arranged everything, parking, credentials, my name in the program. Olivia Sterling, director of the Second Chances Scholarship Program. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Madison, about my father's voice saying sick daughter, about my mother turning away. Was I doing this for the right reasons? Eleanor knocked softly and came in with tea, sitting on the edge of my bed like she had done countless times before. Second thoughts, she asked. Just thoughts. You're not the girl they threw away, Olivia. You're the woman who built herself back up. Remember that tomorrow. I sipped the chamomile tea. Will you be there? Front row. Always. Morning came too fast. I dressed carefully. Navy suit. Professional, but not stiff. Eleanor's grandmother's pearl necklace rested against my collarbone. In the mirror, I didn't see the 15-year-old girl left in the rain. I saw someone composed. Successful. Ready. The campus was beautiful. Old brick buildings, manicured lawns, students in caps and gowns, families laughing, taking photos. The air buzzed with possibility. I arrived early and met President Walsh in his office. He was warm, enthusiastic. "Ms. Sterling, we're honored to have you. Your work is extraordinary." "Thank you, sir. The students will be inspired." "I'm certain of it." David walked me to the auditorium. Backstage was controlled chaos. Faculty adjusting robes, staff checking microphones, graduates peeking through curtains. I scanned the program. Row 3, Madison Sterling, Bachelor of Arts, Communications. My heart hit my ribs. "You okay?" David asked. "Yes," I said, folding the program. "Just ready." Eleanor arrived wearing an elegant emerald dress. She hugged me tightly. "You've got this." "I know. Remember why you're doing this?" I nodded, head high, truth clear. No revenge, just honesty. She kissed my cheek and went to her seat. The auditorium was filling now, hundreds of voices blending into a steady hum of anticipation. Somewhere out there, my parents were likely sitting in the middle section, excited for Madison's moment. They had no idea who the keynote speaker was. David confirmed the program listed my name, but in small print. Most people wouldn't notice until it was too late. President Walsh placed a hand on my shoulder. 5 minutes. I stepped toward the wings. The podium waited. The microphone stood ready. Beyond it, a sea of faces under bright lights.
It was time.
Everything shifted the moment President Walsh approached the podium. The hall fell into silence as he addressed the audience. "Welcome, graduates, families, and distinguished guests," he began. "Today we honor achievement, perseverance, and the limitless promise within our students." A wave of applause followed. Our keynote speaker today represents those very ideals. She has devoted her life to making sure every student, no matter their background, has access to opportunity. Please join me in welcoming the director of the Second Chances Scholarship Program, Ms. Olivia Sterling. The auditorium responded with polite applause. I stepped forward into the light. The stage felt enormous. A single podium stood at its center, microphone ready. Beyond the first few rows, the crowd blurred into a sea of caps and gowns. I walked steadily, each step deliberate, my confidence quietly firm. My heels echoed across the stage floor. Then I saw them. Row 3, Madison, in her cap and gown, honor cords draped around her neck. She was clapping and smiling, half-turned as she whispered something to the girl beside her. Then she looked up. Her eyes met mine. Her hands stopped mid-clap. The smile faded instantly. Confusion flashed across her face, then recognition, then shock. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Behind her, in row 8, my parents sat still clapping, not yet focused, just polite attendees applauding a speaker whose name they had not yet processed. I reached the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out over the audience. Madison had gone pale. Her friend leaned in and asked if she was okay. Eleanor sat in the front row to the right of the stage. She gave a small, reassuring nod. I placed both hands on the podium.
"Good morning," I began.
"Thank you, President Walsh, for that generous introduction." My voice was steady, clear, and amplified across the hall. My father suddenly looked up. I saw him lean forward, squinting, trying to place the voice. My mother pressed a hand to her chest. I smiled, professional, composed. "It is truly an honor to be here today," I continued. "Today, I want to speak about resilience, about what it means to lose everything and still find a way to stand again." The room quieted further. "Let me tell you about a 15-year-old girl," I said, my tone calm and natural. "She was told she didn't belong, that something about her was broken, that she could not be fixed." My mother tightened her grip on my father's arm. One night, during a storm, she was forced out of her home, told she was no longer wanted. A ripple of discomfort moved through the audience. She walked alone through that storm for hours. No phone, no money, no one to call. And then she was struck by a car. She nearly didn't survive. Madison sat completely still now, pale, frozen. But someone stopped. I continued. Someone chose to help. Someone saw value in her when no one else did. Eleanor's eyes shone with pride. That person became her family, her mentor, her lifeline. I paused, letting the silence deepen. That 15-year-old girl was me. The auditorium went utterly silent. My father half rose from his seat before my mother pulled him back down. They stared in disbelief. Madison looked like she might vanish into her chair. Students around her began whispering, turning to one another in shock. "I am here today because of Dr. Eleanor Smith," I said, gesturing toward her. "She never gave up on me when my own family did. She taught me that rejection is not the end, it can be the beginning." The whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. The Second Chances Scholarship was born from that truth. It exists for students who have been told they are not enough, who have been dismissed, abandoned, or forgotten. I turn my gaze directly to Madison. Because being rejected does not define you. What you choose to become after does. Today, that scholarship has supported 47 students, I said evenly. Students like the girl I once was. A woman in the back muttered loudly, "Is that really her family?" I didn't react. My voice remained steady, controlled. "In those years after the storm, I learned something important," I concluded. Family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes it is defined by choice. Sometimes it's the people who choose you when everyone else walks away that matter most. Eleanor gently wiped her eyes and offered me a soft smile. "I had come to understand that you don't need the whole world to believe in you. You only need one person. Just one individual who can see beyond appearances, beyond accusations, and beyond lies." Madison's expression collapsed. She lowered her gaze, her shoulders trembling as her friends stopped whispering and began staring at her instead, slowly piecing everything together. And I realized, gripping the podium tightly, that success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about creating something meaningful in spite of them. My father's hands shook uncontrollably. He looked as though he wanted to flee, to escape everything unfolding in front of him. My mother sat there crying in silence, mascara streaking down her face. So, to the graduating class of Riverside State University, I leave you with this. Your value is not defined by who stays in your life, but by how you rise and grow after they leave. I paused, letting those words settle over the room. You will face rejection, disappointment, and people who will underestimate you. That is certain. I looked across the sea of young, hopeful graduates. But the choice of what comes next will always belong to you. You decide who you become. A standing ovation began slowly, then grew stronger as students, faculty, and families rose to their feet, though not everyone joined in. My father remained seated, pale, his hands covering his face. My mother stood mechanically, clapping weakly as tears continued to fall. Madison did not move at all. She sat frozen, staring down at her lap. I stepped back from the podium. President Walsh was smiling brightly. "Thank you, Ms. Sterling. That was powerful." I walked off stage into the wings and finally exhaled. The ceremony carried on as President Walsh returned to the podium and continued calling names. From backstage, I watched through a gap in the curtains. The atmosphere had shifted. Students crossed the stage to collect their diplomas, but the applause was uneven, distracted. Madison Sterling, Bachelor of Arts, Communications. Madison stood slowly and walked toward the stage. Her smile looked strained, almost forced. Her hands trembled as she accepted her diploma. The applause was scattered, some of it enthusiastic, mostly from close friends, but many people remained silent, watching, whispering. She hurried off the stage and disappeared into the crowd of graduates. I saw her friends gather around her, speaking quickly and urgently while she shook her head, trying and failing to explain herself. My parents sat rigidly in their seats, saying nothing, moving not at all, just staring forward. After the final name was called, President Walsh closed the ceremony. "Congratulations to the class of 2026. Caps flew into the air. Cheers erupted. Families rushed forward. I slipped out through a side door and met Eleanor in the reception area outside the auditorium. She hugged me tightly. "You did it," she said. "I did. How do you feel?" I thought for a moment. Free. David approached next, visibly unsettled. Olivia, that was wow. I had no idea. Your family, are you okay? I'm fine. They're asking to see you. Who? Your parents. They're at the side entrance. They want to talk. My stomach tightened. Do I have to? David immediately shook his head. Absolutely not. I can call security. No, I straightened my posture. I'll talk to them, but on my terms. 5 minutes. That's it. Eleanor squeezed my hand. I'll be right here. I walked toward the side entrance, toward the family I had left behind 13 years ago. They stood near a pillar. My father's face was drained of color. My mother's makeup was smudged from tears. Madison stood slightly behind them, her eyes red and unfocused. I stopped about 3 feet away, keeping a professional distance. You wanted to talk? My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he spoke. Olivia, we didn't know you'd be here. I'm sure you didn't. My mother's voice cracked. You look well. I am well. Dr. Smith made sure of that. Eleanor stayed close behind me, her presence quiet but steady, like a shield I didn't need, but still felt grateful for. My father's gaze briefly landed on her before sliding away again, as if he couldn't quite meet the reality standing in front of him. We owe you an apology, he said at last. You owe me far more than that. I replied evenly, my tone controlled and calm. But an apology is at least a beginning. Mom lowered her eyes. We made a mistake, a terrible one. We should have listened. You should have protected me. I cut in gently, firm but not raised. That's what parents do. They protect their children. My hands stayed relaxed at my sides, deliberately open, refusing to fold into defense. You chose Madison's version of events over my truth. You called me sick and then you threw me out into a storm. Madison flinched instantly, tears sliding down her cheeks as the weight of it settled on her. We were wrong, Dad said, his voice breaking under the pressure of years. I was wrong. I've carried regret from that night every single day for 13 years. Good, I said simply. The word landed sharply in the space between us. Can we talk? Mom reached out slightly, hesitating midair. Privately, as a family? We're not a family, I replied, not harshly, but with quiet certainty. That stopped being true 13 years ago. You made that clear yourselves. But we can fix this, Dad insisted, urgency cracking his voice. We want to fix it, please. There's nothing left to fix, I answered. You made your choice. I made mine. It's over. Olivia, Madison's voice trembled as she stepped forward, barely holding herself together. I'm sorry. I was 12. I was stupid. I didn't understand. You were old enough to know what you were doing, I said, steady, but not cruel. At that moment, David approached carrying a folder. Olivia, these are the scholarship applications for next semester. President Walsh wanted you to have them before you left. He placed the folder into my hands. The university letterhead was crisp and official, my name printed neatly on the front, along with photos of scholarship recipients and testimonials inside. My father stared at it, disbelief tightening his face. You really built all of this? Yes, I said simply. Mom took the folder carefully, almost afraid of it, and opened it. As she read, her expression slowly collapsed under the weight of understanding. 200 students, 47 already supported, and expanding. You're a director? She whispered. Senior director. I corrected gently. As of last month. I took the folder back. I work with 5 universities. We've provided over $200,000 in scholarships for students coming from difficult circumstances. At that moment, President Walsh joined us, completely unaware of the tension surrounding the scene. Ms. Sterling, that was one of the finest keynote speeches we've ever had. The students are still talking about it. Thank you, President Walsh, I replied politely. He turned toward my parents with a warm smile. Are you Olivia's family? You must be incredibly proud. Silence followed. They are, Eleanor said smoothly beside me. Aren't you, Mr. Sterling? She added. My father's jaw tightened. Yes, very proud. President Walsh nodded enthusiastically. Ms. Sterling is one of our most valued partners. Her work has changed lives. Honestly, saved some of them. He shook my hand once more and walked away. My father finally looked at me properly, like he was seeing me for the first time. We had no idea. You never asked, I said softly. You erased me. You acted like I stopped existing. I tried to find you, Mom whispered. After the hospital, you disappeared. I changed my name legally, I replied. Made it harder to be found. I met her eyes directly. I needed you not to find me. I needed space to heal. Did you? Dad asked quietly. Did you heal? Yes, I said. No thanks to you. Madison's friends suddenly stepped forward, hesitation written across their faces. One of them gently touched Madison's arm. Is that true? She asked. Is she really your sister? Madison couldn't answer. She only nodded faintly. You told us you were an only child, another said, stunned. I know. Madison began, but her voice collapsed. You told people she died, another friend said flatly. My eyebrows lifted slightly at that. You said I was dead? I asked quietly. Madison's face burned red. I didn't mean it like that. It was easier than explaining. Explaining what? One of the girls pressed. That you lied? That your family kicked her out? It wasn't like that, Madison insisted weakly. Then what was it like? The third asked, turning to me instead. I met her gaze calmly. I'm sorry, she said softly. I'm really sorry this happened to you. Thank you, I replied gently. One by one they walked away, and Madison was left standing alone, watching them go, finally forced to sit in the silence she had created. Madison's mother began to speak, but Madison cut her off immediately. Don't, Madison snapped sharply. Just don't. She turned her gaze toward me, this time, fully, unflinchingly. I had always wanted to tell them everything, to finally reveal the truth, but fear had kept me silent all these years. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being hated. Fear that everyone would turn against me. What are you scared of? I asked quietly. That they hate me, she whispered. That everyone would hate me. She wiped her tears, her voice breaking under the weight of it all. They were right. I deserve this. I stepped forward slightly. Madison, I don't hate you. She looked up. I forgive you, I continued, not because it changes what happened, but because I need peace for myself, not for you. Then I added firmly, but I don't want a relationship. You need to respect that. Madison's voice trembled. Can't we just? No, I interrupted, calm but final. My tone didn't shake. I made it clear. For 13 years, you made decisions.
You chose to lie.
You chose to erase me. That wasn't confusion. That wasn't childhood ignorance. That was who you became. Madison broke down completely, collapsing into tears. Our mother pulled her close, trying to comfort her. I turned to Eleanor. Can we go? Yes, she said gently, linking her arm with mine. Let's go home. We walked away, without looking back. Not once. Behind us, I could hear Madison crying and my father calling my name, broken, desperate, almost pleading. But I kept walking. I need to pause here for a moment because that scene, it wasn't just a confrontation. It was the end of a 13-year illusion. The moment everything finally collapsed. If you've ever had to set boundaries with family who hurt you, you understand how heavy that moment feels. Boundaries matter. And if this story is resonating with you, you already know why it matters. Now, let me tell you what happened after graduation. In the weeks that followed, my phone never stopped ringing. Voicemails from my father, begging me to call back, apologizing endlessly, saying, "We're so sorry. Please just talk to us." Emails from my mother followed, long, emotional, full of explanations that sounded more like excuses. We were under pressure. Madison was going through a phase. We didn't understand what we were doing. I didn't respond.
Not yet.
Work kept me busy. Scholarship applications piled up. And then something unexpected happened. The graduation ceremony went viral. Not the entire event, just my speech. Someone had recorded it, uploaded it online. Within hours, it had 50,000 views. Then 100,000. Then more. The comments came flooding in. This woman is incredible. Family isn't blood. It's who shows up. This is exactly what I needed to hear. But there were others too. Is this real? What university is this? What happened to the sister? I ignored them and focused on my life. Then an email arrived from one of Madison's former friends. Subject line: "You deserve to know." Inside were screenshots of group chats. They were talking about Madison
Distancing themselves.
cutting ties. One message stood out. "I can't believe she lied about her sister being dead. That's insane." Another said, "I'm uninviting her. I don't want drama in my wedding." Madison's carefully built social world was falling apart. For a moment, I felt something like sympathy, but it faded quickly. Mostly, I felt relief. Eleanor and I had dinner that night. Quiet. Peaceful. "How are you holding up?" she asked. I paused, searching for the right words. "I feel free, like I finally put down something I didn't realize I was carrying." "You handled it well," she said softly, "with grace." "They want to reconcile," she added after a moment. "Do you?" I thought about it carefully. "No," I said finally. "I don't think I do." She nodded and squeezed my hand. "That's okay. You're allowed to walk away." 2 weeks later, my father came to my office. My assistant buzzed in. "Miss Sterling, there's a Mr. Sterling here. He says he's your father." No appointment. My stomach tightened. "Give me 5 minutes," I said. "Then send him in." I closed my laptop, straightened my desk, and took a slow breath. When he entered, he looked older, tired. Gray creeping into his hair, deep lines etched into his face. His shoulders were heavy, as if guilt had finally settled there permanently. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. I replied evenly. "I understand." He sat down across from me like this was a formal interview. "Olivia," he began, voice shaking, "I need to say this. We were wrong. I was wrong. What we did, what I said, it was unforgivable." "Yes," I said simply. He nodded quickly. "Madison finally told us everything last week. The lies. The manipulation. All of it. 13 years too late," I said. "I know," he whispered. "I know it doesn't fix anything." His hands trembled as he clasped them together. "We've been living with guilt every single day. That empty room, the photos we took down, we know what we destroyed." "You did," I said calmly. "And you can't undo it." "Can you forgive us?" he asked. I leaned back in my chair. "Forgiveness isn't the issue," I said. "Trust is. And that's gone. You believed her over me. You called me sick. You threw me out into a storm." "I know," he said, breaking. "You don't know," I replied softly. "You don't know what it's like to be 15 and homeless because your own family decided you were a problem. You'll never know." Tears rolled down his face. "Tell me what I can do." I shook my head. "Nothing. It's too late." 3 days later, an email arrived. Subject line: "I'm sorry." It was from Madison. I almost deleted it. My finger hovered over the screen for a long moment, but I opened it. "I know you don't want to hear from me," it began. "I don't deserve your attention, but I need to say this." She continued, "I was jealous of you. You were smart, capable, and people liked you naturally. I had to fight for attention, and it still wasn't enough. You were always better than me. When Jake chose you over me, something inside me broke, and I reacted without thinking. I set everything in motion, the fake screenshots, the fabricated bruise, all of it. I knew Mom and Dad would believe me. They always did. I never expected it to escalate the way it did. I never thought Dad would actually kick you out. The moment I saw you stepping out into that storm, I felt physically sick, but by then it was already too late to undo anything. I was trapped by fear, by pride, by my own lies. For 13 years, I carried that guilt while pretending nothing was wrong. I told everyone you were gone because admitting the truth felt unbearable. I destroyed your life, and I understand that now. But I also destroyed mine in the process. I ended up isolated, with no real friends left. People stopped trusting me, and I even lost a job opportunity when someone from graduation informed HR about my past. I'm not asking you to forgive me, because I know I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know the truth. I'm sorry, truly, deeply sorry, Madison. I read her message twice and saved it without replying. 4 days later, another email came, and then another after that, each one more desperate than the last. After the fifth message, I finally responded with a short final note. Madison, I acknowledge that you were young, but you had 13 years to make things right. Instead, you chose to let me remain erased. I forgive you for my own peace, but I do not want any contact. Please respect that. After that, the email stopped. My speech went far more viral than I expected. A local news station reached out and wanted to feature me in a segment about the scholarship program. I agreed, but only under the condition that the focus would remain on the students, not my personal history. When it aired, the segment highlighted how the local researchers' Second Chances program was transforming lives for students in crisis. 3 scholarship recipients were interviewed. One of them said, "This program literally saved my life. I was about to drop out, but Miss Sterling's team gave me hope." Applications increased dramatically. Funding requests poured in. 3 additional universities expressed interest in partnering. Academic journals contacted me, asking me to write about my methods. A national conference invited me to speak on equity in education and closing opportunity gaps. David later knocked on my office door and joked, "You're famous now. How does it feel?" I told him honestly, strange. I only wanted to help a few students. But he corrected me. "You're doing more than that. You're changing systems." Soon after, the State Board of Education sent a formal recognition honoring my contribution to educational equity. And through all of it, I could see the ripple effects spreading everywhere. Madison disappeared from social media. Her accounts went silent and eventually private. My father sent one final message. "We are proud of you, even though we don't deserve to be." I never replied. My mother tried calling once, but I didn't answer. Old family acquaintances reached out on LinkedIn with awkward congratulations, but I declined every invitation. Meanwhile, Eleanor was invited as a keynote speaker at a national education conference. She asked me to join her as both guest and colleague. I agreed immediately. We traveled to Chicago together, presented side by side, stayed in a comfortable hotel, and spoke about everything except my biological family. Over dinner, Eleanor told me, "You've built a beautiful life. You should be proud." I replied, "I am, because of you." She shook her head gently.
No.
"I simply gave you the opportunity. You built everything else." A year after Madison graduated, my life had transformed completely. The Second Chances Scholarship expanded to 10 universities. We had helped 83 students stay in school, remain alive, and hold on to hope. I was promoted to senior director, given a corner office, a raise, and recognition from people I once only read about in textbooks. I briefly dated a kind man named Marcus who worked in public policy. It ended amicably, and I learned that not all endings have to hurt. Eleanor turned 60, and we celebrated with a party filled with colleagues, friends, and students she had mentored over the years. It was a room full of people who had chosen her, loved her, and built a family around her. I gave a toast to the woman who taught me that family is something you build, not something you are born into. I said, "Thank you for choosing me." She cried, happy tears. Sometimes I think about my biological family, but not with pain anymore. Just curiosity, wondering where they are, whether Madison ever found peace, whether my father still sends messages that go unanswered. One Christmas, they sent a card with no return address, only signatures. Richard, Patricia, Madison. No message. No explanation. I kept it. I didn't throw it away.
I didn't respond.
I simply acknowledged that it existed. Later, I spoke at another graduation ceremony. Different university, different students, same truth. Boundaries are not walls, I said. They are doors you control. Afterward, a young woman approached me in tears. She said, "That was my story too. I was kicked out at 16. I thought I was alone." I told her, "You are not alone. You are surviving, and that is more than enough." She hugged me tightly and thanked me. That evening, driving home to the house I shared with Eleanor, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: complete peace. People sometimes ask if I regret that night, the storm, the pain, the hospital. I don't, because it led me here, to this life, this purpose, this family I chose. Not every story is like mine. I understand that I am lucky. Eleanor Smith found me, chose me, and saved me. Not everyone gets that. But everyone gets the right to set boundaries. Everyone gets to decide who has access to their life. You do not owe toxic people your presence, even if they are family, especially if they are family. Forgiveness does not require reconciliation. You can forgive someone for your own peace, while still keeping them out of your life. Both can be true. I learned that blood does not define family. Choice does, consistency does, showing up does. Eleanor showed up for 13 years. That is what made her my mother. My biological family showed up once, failed, and never tried again. Success is not about proving people wrong. It is about building something meaningful in spite of them. Revenge tries to harm. Purpose tries to heal. Your worth is not defined by who stays. It is defined by how you grow after they leave. I chose to become someone who helps children like the younger version of me, kids who need a second chance, who deserve to be told they are worth saving. That is my legacy. Not the family that abandoned me, but the one I built afterward. I am 28 now. The same age I was when this story began, yet I feel older, wiser, and whole. My parents' names are still saved in my phone. I haven't deleted them, but I haven't called them either. They belong to my past, not my present, and certainly not my future. Madison still messages me every few months, short apologies, simple check-ins. I read them. I don't respond. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. Either way, I am at peace with it. Eleanor Smith is my mother now. Not Dr. Smith, just mom. She is my emergency contact, the first person I call when something good happens, the person whose opinion I trust most. Blood did not make her my mother.
Choice did.
Years of showing up, believing in me, and loving me when I could not love myself. That is what family means. Every year on October 15th, I drive past my old house, not to relive pain, but to remember survival. I park across the street and look at those windows, that door, and I remind myself, that girl made it through. She survived being rejected, labeled, and discarded, and she didn't just survive, she became something stronger. If you are in your own storm right now, remember this. You can survive it too. And not only survive, you can grow beyond it. Do not let anyone convince you that you are too broken, too much, or not enough. You are already enough. Thank you for listening. You matter. And if this story reached you, stay strong, take care of yourself, and remember, you define your worth, no one else.